Hey guys, I'm back. I know there's a video for this week, and for some reason it didn't get posted, and I don't know what happened to it. So it's a real quick one, so it won't take us very long. We're just talking about data types and types of displays. And so what we've done already is we talked about how do we get our data, how do we collect our data, how do we design our experiment. So now we've got that data. What do we do with it? And so we're going to start what's called exploratory data analysis today, or EDA. And with EDA, what we do in exploratory data analysis, we explore the data. Exploratory data analysis. Oops. I'm going to put EDA on there because a lot of times we'll just shorten it to EDA. And this is where we just take a look at the data and say, okay, what does this data seem to be telling us? Graphically is where we're going to start. Later on, we'll talk about, okay, what does the center of the data appear to be? How far spread out does the data seem to be? Those kinds of things. So basically today, I just want to talk about the two main types of data that we're going to get, and then we'll talk about what kind of displays might be appropriate for those two data types. And so the first data that we're going to talk about is qualitative. Okay, and I sometimes call this categorical. It's basically data that's suitable for putting things into categories. So it describes something about the data or the individual. So the variables that that you might have. Well, you all took the super awesome Mega Stats survey, and you know that there were some things in there that maybe we took from you that were for qualitative, categorical, like your hair color, right? That's categorical. Okay, you know, we might have asked you about your grade that you are in school. You know, we might ask you about whether you wear a mask or not. Oops. And that would be like yes or no, right? And basically anything that's qualitative, it describes some quality of the individual, that variable. It goes into the categorical thing. We can put you into categories based on it. The way I like to think of it is, would it make sense to average that? Okay, would it make sense to find the average hair color of our statistics class, or maybe the average mask wearing? Yeah, I don't think that really makes sense. So anything that's qualitative, it's really only good for putting things into categories, and it's not really good for much else. Okay, compare that to quantitative. And this is usually, you know, it measures something about the person or the individual, right? And so, like, I think one of the questions in there was an SAT score. One of them was a GPA. We could ask you about distance from school. You know, was there one in there about number of siblings? So yeah, there's things that are quantitative, or things that we can measure. It makes sense to average them. So, you know, what's the average GPA of an AP statistics student? On average, what do we get on the SAT score? How many miles do our students live on average from OHS? Those are the kinds of things that are quantitative. Now, I want you to be careful here, because I don't want you to get caught up in the fact that it's a number, because there's a lot of things about you that we could measure with a number that maybe don't make a lot of sense to average. Therefore, they wouldn't really be quantitative. Like if I asked you what your zip code is, okay, the zip code is a geographic identifier, okay, but it certainly doesn't make any sense to average. What's the average zip code of folks that live, you know, that go to OHS, right? We might ask you what your student ID number is. Okay, well, student ID number is categorical, right? Based on the first couple of digits, if you've been in the Olympia School District for your whole career, we can probably tell what elementary school you went to, but it certainly wouldn't make any sense to average them. And so be careful. It's not always just, okay, if it's a number, it's got to be quantitative, because there are a lot of things that are numbers that aren't really quantitative. What's the average cell phone number of a student in AP statistics? Doesn't make any sense. So watch out for those two things. All right, so depending on what kind of data we have, what kind of graph could we display with, right? So I'm just going to list out some graph types. That, normally we just popcorn this out in class, but I'm guessing that you guys have all done bar graphs before, and pie charts, and what other kind of graph have you done? Maybe a time series graph, where you plot a certain quantity over time. There's lots of displays out there that we're going to see, but these are probably the ones that you're most familiar with right now. And so what we're going to be tasked with in our next class is taking a look at the super mega awesome stats survey and making a couple of graphs and seeing like, okay, so based on whatever type of variable you created, what kind of graph makes sense? So for like categorical data, a bar graph probably makes sense. Okay, a pie chart might make sense, but a time series graph might not make a lot of sense, right? There's another graph, a histogram. You may have seen that in your science class. Okay, histogram, that really is only for quantitative data. So you might make a histogram, but it would be for quantitative. I don't think you've probably seen a dot plot before, but we're going to learn what a dot plot is. I don't know how many of you have done a stem and leaf plot before, but we're going to see what a stem and leaf plot looks like down the road. And don't forget my favorite, box and whisker plot. Man, box and whisker plot gets a bad rap. Man, I bring that up and all my other math teachers are like, oh, those are the dumbest thing. Why do we do those? Like, those are actually pretty cool graphs. Like when you understand like what it's trying to show you, a box and whisker plot can be pretty useful. So I think if you remember making them, cool. If you don't worry about it. We're going to review that. But those are the types of graphs that we're going to get into this year. And pretty much that's it for the video, I think. Just the two types of data, the types of graphs. So when we get to class, you're going to get access to the results from the survey, and I'm going to put you into breakout groups, and we're going to go in there and we're going to make some of these graphs. We're going to analyze the data that we gathered as we start to explore what does that data seem to tell us about our class. So. And that's it, guys. That's really all there is for today. So your notes are pretty short, which is a good thing. And the video is pretty short, which is a good thing, because there's really not a lot right now. Next week, we'll get into a little bit more technical stuff with our data and the kinds of graphs that we're going to make. But for right now, just kind of starting to dip our toe in the water of exploratory data analysis. So thanks, guys. It's good to see you all, virtually anyway. And I'll see you in class either Thursday or Friday. And check out the new calendar. I put it in the folder so you can see what the plan for October is going to be. All right, guys. See ya.